I can't believe how well everyone is doing at keeping to a minute. It's unbelievable. Next, James Fuerst with Dystopian Fiction.
In preparing for this, I've realized how painfully slow my speaking voice is, so I'm just going to read it. Dystopian fiction, from the Greek dys, meaning bad, and topos, meaning place, is an offshoot of both science fiction and speculative fiction, and along with noir, one of the dominant aesthetic modes in Western popular culture from the mid-20th century to today. Dystopian fiction often deals with totalitarian governments and institutionalized forms of injustice, as well as future worlds that are, in the phrase of one commentator, slightly worse than the present. Dystopian tales can therefore be seen as moral and political warnings against the potentially disastrous consequences of current trends. And over the course of the semester, I've begun referring to a small set of dystopian texts as liberalism's nightmares. When I began reading for this course 3 years ago, I had absolutely no idea how timely, or as of the moment, it would turn out to be. Rather than suggest why this may be so, I'd like to give you some text support for that claim by reading a short passage from one of this year's surprise international bestsellers, first published in 1986, which students have read, discussed, and written about in class. In Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, the repressive theocratic regime of the Republic of Gilead has taken over the United States and Canada in the midst of widespread fertility and infant mortality crises and a general population collapse. As a result, single fertile women are coerced to serve as state-sponsored surrogates to bear the children of Gilead's elderly rulers, known as commanders. Alfred, the protagonist narrator, is one such surrogate, a handmaid. And at this moment, she is reflecting upon how such radical social changes came to be, occurring as they did over a handful of years that she lived through and witnessed herself. Is that how we lived then? But we lived as usual. Everyone does, most of the time. Whatever is going on is as usual. Even this is as usual now. We lived as usual by ignoring. Ignoring isn't the same as ignorance. You have to work at it. Nothing changes instantaneously. In a gradually heating bathtub, you'd be boiled to death before you knew it. There were stories in the newspapers, of course, corpses in ditches or the woods, bludgeoned to death or mutilated, interfered with, as they used to say, but they were about other women, and the men who did such things were other men. None of them were the men we knew. The newspaper stories were like dreams to us, bad dreams dreamt by others. How awful, we would say, and they were. But they were awful without being believable. They were too melodramatic. They had a dimension that was not the dimension of our lives. We were the people who were not in the papers. We lived in the blank white spaces at the edges of print. It gave us more freedom. We lived in the gaps between the stories. The point to be drawn here, I think, is not about the various ways that art can imitate life or vice versa, but I think the point is about how engaging with fictional works from the past can serve as springboards for critical interrogations of the present. Thank you.